Good morning, Charlotte. Thanks for the question. Indeed, we have a lot of demand for our commercial airplanes. Again, last year, we are with a book-to-bill of more than one, meaning more new contracts with customers than what we have delivered. And we have now a backlog of more than 8,000 airplanes to deliver in the years to come. And we are limited by supply. That's really the biggest challenge. And the speed at which we're ramping up is limited by the ability of some key suppliers to find solutions. We call them the bottlenecks of the ramp-up. And we're focusing on them. And they are limiting our ability to ramp up. We think the 820 mark, or what we call around 820, is a good balance between the risk and the opportunities that we see in the industry. But probably like last year, or maybe even more than last year, we have uncertainties. There are things ahead of us that we don't know at the beginning of the year. And we believe we will have to continue to navigate, to adapt, and eventually reach this objective of around 820 aircraft for 2025.
So can you flesh out the issues that you're facing on the supply chain front? We know you had issues with engines. They're also buying parts of Spirit AeroSystems as well. What Boeing is buying a part, you're buying another part. Can you just flesh out for us the work that you're doing with your suppliers in order to be able to ramp up your production?
So on the single-aisle aircraft, I mean the A320 family, we've been limited by engines mostly. There was the Pratt GTF engine 2 years ago with the difficulties they encountered with the metal powder issue that is leading to a big recall campaign, and that is limiting the number of engines going for new fit for us. But also last year, with production difficulties faced by CFM and their supply chain, that has led to a difficult end of 2024 and also some shortages at the beginning of this year. So that's one of the challenges we have on the single aisle, probably the most important bottleneck. On the 220 and on the A350, the difficulties of Spirit AeroSystems are the main ones. And we don't manage to ramp up at the speed we had prepared, mainly because of these difficulties with Spirit. As you probably have observed, we are in the phase of buying from Spirit the work packages that serve Airbus, primarily the section 15, so a big section of the fuselage of the A350 manufactured in Kingston in the US, and the A220 wings, which are manufactured in Belfast in the UK. So we are in the process of trying to acquire those activities. We hope for a signing in the next weeks and a closing targeted mid of the year. That would be a way for us to own those activities and to be able to do the investment, to put the focus that will enable the ramp up that for the rest of our own activities and own supply chain is moving forward at good pace. So it's really a pity to be limited by those work packages. And then we have other issues that are more linked to customer by customer situation for the seats, for the interiors, sometimes other kind of equipment. But the structural limitations are more with aerostructure, engines, and sometimes interiors and seats.
And you have reconfirmed your medium-term target of 75 A320 per month in 2027. So you are confident that while you have some snags at the moment, your production ramp-up is still on track?
We have the tide has to go up. And when we look at the preparedness of the complete production system, we are moving forward at good pace. We are with short-term limitations that I mentioned before, which are not endangering the more long-term perspective. That's why we have reconfirmed the rates that we are targeting for the A220, for the A320, and for the A350. It's really a growth story. And with the A330, which is the fourth product line we have, we are now at rate 4. It's more modest, and we are stabilizing at rate 4. So at Airbus, we are really in the investment and the ramp up to go to much higher production rates by 2026, 27, 2028 on the different products.
There's some uncertainty on the horizon around tariffs that might be imposed by the Trump administration. Of course, you have an assembly line in Mobile, Alabama. So are you studying and looking at changing some of your production or just some investment in order to face some of these potential new tariffs?
Right. First, I'd like to say that we have decided to issue a guidance in spite of those uncertainties to clarify what we think we can deliver this year absent tariffs. Now, those tariffs are looming and we don't know what they will be if and when we would have tariffs coming, what they would impact. So we stand ready to adapt accordingly, but we think we have done the right things in the past to be much more present in the US, to buy a lot, to sell a significant amount of aircraft, helicopters in the US, but to manufacture as well in the US. We have a large production site in Mobile, Alabama, where we have already 2 final assembly lines, one for the A220, one for the A320 family, and we are currently building a third one to deliver A320 and A321 from the US to the US. So we have also a large demand from the rest of the world. So would we face very significant difficulties to deliver to the US? We can also adapt by bringing forward deliveries to other customers which are very eager to get planes. So we have a lot of potential flexibilities, but bottom line, we believe in this industry that is very much a North Atlantic ecosystem with a lot of interdependencies. Tariffs would hurt both sides. And therefore, I believe, I hope that we will not be significantly impacted by tariffs.
May I ask you about your space unit? You announced a new charge of 300 million euros. Of course, it's a unit that you've been restructuring for a while now. Can you just give us an update on how things are going for that unit in particular?
Space is the area where we are suffering. It's a business that is very much disrupted by SpaceX, Starlink, and other players going to constellation. So our customers are disrupted. We are also challenged because we took a lot of risks in the past for new technologies, actually in an environment that has proven to be difficult. So COVID played a role, but not only. So we had to face the reality that we had underestimated the risk compared to the reality and what we think will be the future of those programs. We are now closing the chapter of the technical assessment of where we stand and moving forward into execution. Now, when it comes to the business itself, we think we are subscale against the big players in the US and in the rest of the world. So we're working on a potential consolidation of our activities with other European players, namely Thales and Leonardo, and we are in exploratory discussions with them to see what it could look like and by when we could come together. So we are working on all fronts, solving our existing issues in the existing programs, restructuring the unit to make it more competitive, and also looking at more strategic options.
So because you mentioned these talks you're having with Thales and Leonardo, I wanted to ask you about defense in general. We see these European governments talking about increasing defense spending, given the context at the moment. And despite that, you see there is an additional charge on your A400M program, that is your plane defense program. So what is happening there? Is there an opportunity for you at the moment? And can you tell us more about these talks that you're having potentially for this tie-up there? That you've talked in the past about the need of concentration when it comes to European defense. Do you think you can put the first steps for that with the talks you're having at the moment?
Yeah, I think the need for consolidation in defense in Europe is more important than ever. And the overall security context speaks for that. There are indeed discussions between European states on what this could mean. I'm calling for those states to come together to create better defense spending by working together. Today, we're too fragmented. The European budgets in defense are too small and they're too fragmented, which means that we don't have the scale to create a lot of products that would be at the right level of specification. So at Airbus, we like to be a partner to propose solutions when it comes to cooperations. All our products today are military products, or most of them are the results of European cooperations, sometimes beyond Europe. And we think that's the way forward to bring to Europe what it needs in terms of security and defense in the face of the threats that we are facing and in the face of what our main partners, including the US, are expecting from Europe when it comes to taking our future in our hands and investing more and investing better.
Going back to your commercial planes, where do you see the demand coming from in 2025 and further down the line? What are the regions where you see the most demand coming from?
Actually, the demand is coming from all around the world. There is growth and there is need for replacement. Only 30% of the existing fleet of around 25,000 airplanes in the world are modern airplanes, meaning airplanes which have the level of competitiveness and fuel burn of the new generation. So there is 70% to be replaced, and all airlines of the world are trying to access to new products to gain that competitiveness and also decrease their carbon emissions through the use of more modern airplanes. What we see also, and that's very positive for Airbus, is an increasing appetite for our wide bodies and in particular for the A350. So I'm very optimistic on the future of the A350. That's a plane that has managed to convince a lot of airlines and customers, passengers and airlines are very satisfied of the A350 in operation. So we see a lot of demand. We had a book-to-bill of, I think, around 3 last year for our wide bodies after a very successful year, 2020-2023. And I think there will be more coming. So we are looking forward to doing more and doing better on the wide body as well. You know that we are very strong with our single-aisle product line. So overall, strong demand for the products and focusing on supply.